Organizing. We're the headquarters staff, and that's the answer to the urgency of the stories that we've heard. We've been having these conversations at our headquarters at Syracuse University. We've been having conversations in the boardroom, and we wanted to stage this plenary to have a conversation as a town hall with the community of Imagining America. In the last 5 years, we developed a vision, mission, values, and goals statement so we could write who we are as Imagining America and what we stand for, and we involve our membership in that process of looking at it every year and revising it. We developed a theory of change. One of the grounding principles of that theory is inspired by Ella Baker, that we need to find the leaders who are already doing the work, support them, and elevate them into positions of power. We also recognize that the work of imagining is about the critical analysis of the world as it is and the imagination of the world as it could be. And the stories that you heard this morning came from a story circle on the theme of the deep doubt and the deep resonance in higher education. So we've been building teams in the membership. Let's do a poll. How many of you are here with a team of more than 3 people? How many of you are here with a team of more than 7 people? How many of you are here with a team of more than 10 people?
Whoa.
More than 15?
Great. What are their names?
More than 18?
That's the limit.
What's the name? What is it?
It's 19, right?
It's UMBC? Is it 19? Who are you?
UMBC in the house. And Baltimore. UMBC and Baltimore.
4 years ago, we held an Institute on Organizing during the summer, and we taught principles of broad-based community organizing like one-to-one relational meetings and power mapping. But we also, in bringing together teams from Imagining America's 100 colleges to this organizing institute, realized that we not only needed to teach these tools, we needed to create a different kind of space for people to share the things that they were struggling with and the things that they were aspiring to do. So we began to think about how we could use the modalities of the arts, humanities, and design to create the space within higher education that we're often creating in community. How can we, in the academy, use principles like Augusto Boal's image theater and forum theater to workshop the problems that we're facing within our campuses? We began to see Imagining America as a citizenship school where leaders came together every year at a conference and at a summer institute and based on affinity in different meetings to replenish our spirits and develop actions. But with the power in the room, we really struggled about what it means for the campus teams and Imagining America as a body to take an action. We got tension when we first started to introduce organizing because many people thought that it would mean Imagining America was about protest politics. And they were concerned that how would they justify membership in Imagining America if there was a protest for something that their president might not be able to justify the annual membership fee. And yet, we've developed partnerships, like with the Kellogg Foundation on an initiative to have racial healing and transformation. And our graduate students in publicly active graduate education, they have a session this afternoon, have been organizing around issues of equity and access and intersectionality. And so we've invited case stories, not case studies, to share with you and to open up this conversation. The first team is led by Maria Avila, who is a board member of Imagining America and our partner on that first Summer Institute on Organizing, and it's a regional cluster in Southern California.
This one's on. This is fine.
Good? Good to go. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? So I got this thing with community organizing, which just haunts me. And I bumped into it many, many years ago as a college student in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, in the 70s. And so it became my passion since then and continues to be my passion today. So I organized with the Industrial Areas Foundation for 10 years, the network that Saul Alinsky started in Chicago in the 1940s. And then, I burned out and became sort of like, got into the search about what next. When you do work like community organizing and you stop, then it really is very hard to find something that fulfills you in that way. And so I came to higher education. I thought, well, this might be a good place for me to hide for a little bit from the real world, from organizing. But I couldn't escape. Community organizing followed me here. And so since 2001, where I was director of the Center for Community-Based Learning at Occidental College for 10 years, I've been experimenting, playing, exploring ways of bringing community organizing into this world through particularly civic engagement. And so I've created a model of civic engagement that is based on community organizing. And in 2013, I did, with Imagine America, the first community organizing for higher education, focused on higher education. We had no clue whether anybody would be interested, anybody would come. And we had, I think, 14 teams of folks coming from different universities. And so I'm really fortunate to have found Imagine America, which offers the context for me to continue doing this experimenting. And so last fall, I started now with my new hat of being on the board of Imagine America. When I was asked if I wanted to do it, I said, sure, because it gives me another context to organize in higher education. And so that last fall, I started building this cluster in Southern California and using one of the most important practices that I think in broad-based organizing, which is the kind of organizing I'm bringing to this work. And it's the one-to-one relational meeting. And having conversations with folks that I've known for a long time through my civic engagement work about, would this make sense to you? Would this be something that is not just an add-on to what you're already doing, but would it be something that you can integrate into your work and things that matter to you? And so I found a few folks, and we started meeting, and we started sharing, the things that matter to us. And what are you guys doing?
We're taking care of the visual.
We are a collective here. We're a team. And so, just together thinking about what is it that really matters to us. In my kind of organizing, the training that I received in my organizing, you work slowly, you do the work organically, you do it based on relationships, based on what really matters to people, so that they can really sustain themselves in this long-term work of organizing. And so that's what we've been doing. I was a total stranger to cultural organizing when I joined Imagine America in this experiment. And so in this cluster, I've been really intentional about bringing in cultural organizers, like my two colleagues here and others in the room. And so we're learning together about, how to combine these two modalities for organizing. We are telling stories about, the work that we've done, and how we can move forward. And so when I was asked but the point of doing one-to-ones, I should say, is that through that way, we find out about people's self-interest, and then we find out if we can build a collective, we can be together in this collective. And it's about building shared leadership. And so when I was asked to be part of this plenary, I said, well, it's really, it's an honor, it's exciting, but if I go by myself, that would really weaken the work that I've been trying to do. And so bringing these two colleagues with me is part of the shared leadership that we are trying to create through this cluster. And so I want to tell you, just to give you some context, that I am in my third year as a tenure-track faculty member in the social work department at a state university, Cal State Dominguez Hills in LA. I have a full-time job and then some, right? Because I got a heavy teaching and advising load. I have community service, I have publishing, I have research, I got all of that. I have no time for this. And so a few weeks ago, when we were prepping for this plenary session on the phone and Zooming, video conferencing, and Scott said, well, we really need to find more people like you who are willing to organize regional clusters like the one you're organizing. And I said, well, Scott, but it's really not about willing for me. It goes way beyond willing. I really cannot not do it. And so my question to all of us is, how do we get ourselves to the point to where we cannot not organize? And before I pass this on to my two colleagues, I just want to ask those who are in our cluster to stand up. Marisol in the back, George Sanchez, Risi, Amy, and I forgot, Susan. All right.
We also have grad students. Is Robert here? Huerta?
No, I guess he's not. All right, so I pass it on to my colleague here.
So, my name's Elizabeth Chin, and we thought we would follow the tagline for the plenary in the way we've organized this. I'm an anthropologist who teaches at a design school, and I literally and figuratively teach in the whitest space you can imagine. The walls are white, the curriculum is white, the administrators are white, and for me, and I think this thing clicks too fast, one of the problematics is really creating spaces for myself and for my students and for this organizing. And I have to say it's something for me that has largely been instinctual and therefore a bit messy. Maria is one of the prime mentors in my life and practice there. We worked together at Occidental for a long time until she left, and then I went to Art Center. We have a full-time faculty of over 100. There's one black man. I'm one of 3 women of color. We hire the best. We have 30% foreign students, most of whom come from Asia, and 30% Asian American students, and our president has been heard to discuss the Asian problem. So when I'm trying to create these spaces, some of it's about survival, and some of it is about this organizing principle. And for me, that's not something I can do through doing institutional service, but it's really something that I need to build into my teaching and my research and the kind of work that I do in that way. And if this GIF were working, you would see Hyunju, who's one of our graduate students, running closer to the camera and appearing to get larger as she runs into the arms of this young man. And this is a collaboration between my students in the Media Design Practices graduate program and youth from Jóvenes, which is an organization in Boyle Heights that does housing and support services for homeless youth that actually I'm connected with from an alum that we both knew at Occidental College. And what is a part of the key here for me is it's a bottom-up approach, as opposed to the top-down approaches that really typify what might count as community service or design for good in my institution, which is a very sort of noblesse oblige model that I find very problematic. So finding these spaces where, in this case, students are working together collaboratively with homeless youth to use technology as a medium that helps them create relationships with each other, right? And it's not about my students helping anybody. They're not helping anybody. And patience is, I think, one of the problematics we all face, but certainly in organizing this cluster, we are scattered over geography that's immense. Los Angeles County is huge. We're also across several counties. So even being a locality of Southern California is a 4-hour train ride for Kim to get to my campus, or several hours driving for us. And even our capacity to meet on a regular basis is a bit of a trick to pull off. And so the patience that it takes just to get together is important, as well as bringing in more people, which I do kind of on the sly. I'm a member of a secret Facebook group. I don't know if there are any binders here? Binders! It's a group called Binders, full of women of color in academia. And that's a very important group to me. But one of the things that I've begun to do is reach out to other binders and in a course have my students who are art and design students work on doing visualization for academics who don't tend to have these skills, and so turn something that looks like that terrible Excel file in the back into a visual piece that looks like that. And that helps my students get connected to real issues in ways that in the rest of their curriculum doesn't happen. And it also provides a way for me to begin to reel binders in to this IA process. So be warned, but those of you who are already here, you know that. Let's see, and next, we click, click. I'm clicking. Whoops, right, there's one more. This thing is very clicktastic. It doesn't, here we go. Oh, and it's not gonna play my movie. Okay, well, I have a really cute film there, video there. I think part of it's another white space. That was like, that was Kim. Kim said that. One of the things that we all face, and Maria said, there's the I can't not do it issue, but there's also how do we do this work and not make it another thing on top of the already too many things we're doing. And being selective about what we choose to take on is important because there are so many urgent issues that we feel compelled to address. And integrating it into our work is also key. And certainly IA's been addressing that, especially in terms of how do junior faculty build this into a portfolio and have it be recognized by tenure and promotion committees. I happen to now be at an institution that doesn't even have tenure, so we'll see how that works. But just quickly, that again, building it into the kind of work that I do both in the United States and out has been really key in allowing things to coalesce for me personally, but also, again, to selectively bring people and partners to the table and to the larger partnership. And I'll get rid of that white space now. But,
Well, I'm from a very different kind of space. I'm from UC Santa Barbara. We're one of a whole system of UC's campuses across California. And I'm actually very pleased to report that we just got stats on our incoming class of students. 43% of our students are first to college, which is a complete shift in our demographic in a very, in my tenure there. So I just, had to talk about that for a minute. But this is just an old mid-century photo of, sort of the notion of central organizing and control. And I think, that shift from what our institutions tend to operate from a kind of top-down and, centrally administered, our UC system as well as our campus. How do we make that more of a connective network, right? How do we actually not be the keepers and the managers of control, but actually distribute it laterally and with our students? And so I just want to show this. I have a long history with Imagining America as someone who stumbled into what I would say my people, not as an artist, not really understanding my place in my discipline, but finding a community with that shared my values, shared my sense of purpose. And so I actually have been probably for a decade part of IA through, I was on the National Advisory Board. And I just wanted to show you, at the time, in 2011, the advisory board, the geography of that advisory board is what you see outside of that circle. There was, there were two in California, but it was mainly on the East Coast. The red is private, the white is public, and the blue were non-academic institutions. And then what I did here was that cluster is now our Southern California cluster. When I stepped off the board, I felt disenfranchised from this network that was so powerful for me, and that this Southern California organizing is a way to kind of re-establish and multiply the idea of the kind of belonging and network that I think is so crucial to the work that we do individually on our campuses and collectively. I always saw Imagining America as this national force, a movement, but we also need to organize by place. And I think the geography is challenging, but it's the relationships and the affinities in our practices, not just that we're artists or we're humanities scholars, but that we have affinities in our practices and form relationships. So let's go. And so a lot of the work I do is actually place-based, creative placemaking. And I would say as a strategy, mapping and placemaking, there are a number of sessions that are going to be presented over the next day that talk about that, but we have a session where we're actually looking at kind of universities' role and place in gentrification. We are all complicit and a part of this, and California particularly has that interesting shared challenge, right? So a lot of the work I do, whether it's with K through 12 or with academic staff and community members, is using place as an anchor point to understand who we are, where we are, and how we can organize.
1 minute.
And that's it. I think that's it. Yep.
I don't know, it does too when I want one. We're done.
Yes.
Please come on up, our next case story. What a great story as Imagining America prepares to move west, that map. So our next case story comes from Baltimore, and we thought it was important to show you the inner workings of the conference that many attended last year. How many attended the Baltimore conference? So we want to show you how that conference was a milestone in an organizing process that began before the conference and that is happening after the conference. UMBC.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Roma Buble, and I'm the coordinator for student life of student organizations at UMBC, and I'm here with two colleagues of mine, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Emily Maluso. I'm an undergraduate student studying biology and sociology at UMBC.
Good morning, Denise Johnson, Culture Works USDAC Field Office, Cultural Agent.
All right, so 1 year ago, we were in Baltimore. Many of you in the audience were there as well, and we just wanted to take a moment to kind of walk through what happened at the conference that UMBC hosted and that MICA and Morgan State University co-sponsored. So to remind us, here's what happened. Thank you. So UMBC's president, Dr. Rabowski, led a President's Forum where he invited many presidents of our universities to attend. A dozen presidents followed that call, and they discussed the power of the arts, humanities, and design in social change work, as well as ways to elevate public scholarship. University leaders, including President Rabowski and Provost Strauss, also shared powerful stories during the plenaries about their own childhood and about their teenage years, where they realized there's more that I need to do as a person in a leadership position. So those stories propelled them to support public scholarship and also to advocate for higher education, to deeply engage with the issues that we are facing in our society. Then there were 12 site-specific workshops that we developed over the course of almost a year with our community partners, and they were designed in partnership to meaningfully engage conference attendees on the issues and hopes and visions of Baltimoreans, things that people in Baltimore care about the most. There were also passionate performances that highlighted the deep importance of the arts in this work, in the work of social justice and public scholarship. And then the closing plenary was led by Manisha Vepa, who is a sophomore in global studies, and Scott Casper, Dean of the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And they together spoke about the importance of undergraduate students in the Imagining America Consortium. Well, and then there was the weather. Despite our organizing efforts, we were not able to control that. What you saw at the conference is really an articulation of an organizing process that has its roots many years ago. And I will talk a little bit about that organizing process by telling my own story of how I entered into it. 5 years ago, I was a graduate student, and I developed a lot of theoretical knowledge about our world, the problems that we have in our world. But there wasn't really an opportunity as a graduate student to engage with those problems. And I felt disempowered as I drove home, and I would see the problems, and I felt I could not really contribute to solving them. That changed when David Hoffman, a colleague at UMBC, approached me, and he asked me to join this working group without a name. And it was a group of faculty, students, staff, administrators, and they were talking about civic engagement and, more importantly, about civic agency. I had not heard about civic agency, but I listened deeply and I realized that they were trying to build structures that allow us to engage with those problems that we're facing, not only outside of the university, but also within it. 6 months later, that group became to be known as the Breaking Ground Working Group. And Breaking Ground is a shorthand for a philosophy and organizing process that emphasizes the respect for people's stories and people's wisdom, a belief that we have the capacity to work collaboratively to create our society and to create our democracy, and to do that through relationships and to do that work within our own institutions as well. And that philosophy has given me meaning in my career within higher education.
Unlike Romy, I came into UMBC in 2013, and a lot of the structures that she was just describing were kind of already in place. As a freshman, William Klotz, who is here with our UMBC delegation, was the RA on the floor above me, and he suggested that I should apply for Strive, which is a leadership retreat facilitated and sponsored by our Student Life office. Strive gave me language and a sense that collective power is going to solve the problems of the world. That was really something that I didn't even know that I was searching for, and kind of became an awakening process in my experiences at UMBC. It started with Strive, and it has grown. Let's see. Yes, making sure I include everything, because I'm a little nervous. So having experiences that were empowering all of a sudden, and noticing that there were so many working groups at UMBC, and this seemingly spontaneous and random popping up of ideas and groups of people coming together to do projects, I later identified with Breaking Ground and the people that were involved in that work. That's what that was.
So there were supposed to be 2 pictures there. I don't know what happened to them. In 2014, the Imagining America Leadership approached members of the Breaking Ground Working Group to host the conference in Baltimore. And we saw this as an opportunity to expand our organizing work. So the conference was never the end goal. It was a milestone, and it allowed us to also bring in other people and to challenge everyone from the beginning to think about the structures that we can build beyond the conference, the relationships that we can build beyond that.
So I came into the work, I'm an organizer in Baltimore City, and I came into cultural organizing in 2008, working with an artist, Ashley Milburn. And so UMBC contacted me, IA contacted me, saying that they were having a conference in Baltimore City. Extremely excited, an opportunity for community to get in there and talk about what's important to them in their communities, you know, space to allow their voices to be heard. a powerful moment simply because most of the time folks don't want to hear communities' issues because they're very large. So that's how I came into the IA conference in 2015. And doing cultural organizing, it gave me an opportunity to bring as many community groups and stakeholders to the convening to frame the issues that we wanted to talk about in Baltimore. And then, of course, the Baltimore uprising occurred, and it became even more intense. And the intensity was absolutely powerful because it was an opportunity for Baltimore to get really serious, and for me, an opportunity for UMBC to expand its work into the city.
So in our conference organizing, we created structures that would support us in achieving the things that we laid out. So one of those structures was the UMBC Conference Organizing Group. So again, this is a group that existed of faculty, staff, students, administrators, as well as alumni. And we largely utilized this group or worked with this group to organize the campus community to participate in the conference as attendees, as well as presenters. And we laid the groundwork for ongoing institutional support for public scholarship. We also put together the Baltimore Organizing Group, which consisted of representatives of UMBC, MICA, Morgan State, and more than 100 people representing various arts and humanities organizations in Baltimore, independent artists, and humanities organizations, community organizers. So this group was responsible for creating those 12 workshops, and to also think long-term about building and strengthening relationships between and among the institutions of higher education that we have in the area, as well as the city's community and cultural organizations and institutions. So as Denise already mentioned, in the midst of that, the Baltimore uprising occurred. And this was a very critical moment, and it could have gone both ways. People could have pulled out, but through the work that we had been doing for many months, the uprising actually and the relationships that we created, they were strengthened, and our understanding of shared responsibility strengthened as well. We also had, about 4 months before the conference, our Imagining America Summer Organizing Institute, and over the course of 2 days that brought together a lot of people who were on the ground organizing in Baltimore as well as in our institutions. And at the time, we shared stories, and those stories, the 2 days that we spent together, that showed at the conference where we really showed up as one community, ready to take on really the struggles that we have in our communities. And yeah, it's now been a year since the conference, and our organizing work has continued.
So going back to breaking ground again, we're getting the 2-minute symbol. After the conference, we were able to organize a group of undergraduates who attended the conference. And this group is called Imagining UMBC. And our project that we resonated with after our experiences at Imagining America is Humans of UMBC, which is still being worked on, but the purpose of it is to highlight relationships and unscripted, authentic, meaningful kinds of dialogue and things that happen at our university, but not all across our university. So the point is to highlight these things in the hope that, to show that it's there and that it's possible and to give people the thirst for wanting to engage that way with the people that they didn't think that they could, like their students or their teachers, etc.
So the conference last year, IA conference last year in Baltimore, really, in my opinion, brought the Baltimore community together. And UMBC was walking this talk. They convened the groups of people that signed up to plan and participate in the conference. They did a convening at an artist space and had some performance and challenged us to see what next steps we wanted to take, as a city, as folks that were involved in framing conversations and topics at the conference. And I thought that was really huge. I was impressed by UMBC willingness to do that. And so we convened in the community. I offered community space for us to convene and further talk. And in the process of planning the first meeting in the community, through a lot of conversations, we named ourselves as the Baltimore Imagining Group. And we were very serious about trying to imagine a better Baltimore and what would that look like and what resources do we need and what things should we focus on. So UMBC offered another thing, and that was the Art of Transformation Project. I think the Art of Transformation Project, as an organizer and as a person that's doing cultural organizing, is an instrumental mobilizing tool. And the reason why is that in the city, people are doing all kinds of things all over the place. A lot of social change work is going on. But again, it's done in isolation. And the Art of Transformation Project will allow us to connect what we're doing. And as an organizer, I see it as us mobilizing together as social change agents representing the city of Baltimore.
So there are, of course, also problematics that we are facing in our organizing work.
I think everywhere we come in waves of having empowering experiences and disempowering experiences. But I think just in the ways that life experiences can be advantageous, and you can have cumulative advantage or cumulative disadvantage. The experience of a college student can go either way, and I think a lot of the time we talk to students and about students as if their experiences at university are not real, as if they're preparing for the real world. But as a student, I can tell you that real things still happen to me during my time at UMBC. Tragedies happen, the real world comes in, the Baltimore uprising, things are happening and we don't have time. There's a sense of urgency that's been mentioned throughout this process, and if you're really awake, you feel it. And then balancing out how to be impactful and how to, someone has to tell you that what you do is real. So I think that's a big thing that college students come up against.
So Baltimore is named the city of neighborhoods, and maybe over 200 different neighborhoods. That naming itself creates problems and is a problem in Baltimore City simply because all neighborhoods are not equal in terms of economic assets, in terms of how things have been framed years ago. So I'm just going to say this, the higher education in terms of research, the separation of things in terms of race, class, income, age, so on and so forth. So of course, the better communities get listened to, and the communities that have been defined by others as less are not listened to as much. They are seen more as people who are powerless and people who complain. And I've heard these expressions made by people who have the power, administrators and local government and politicians, and it becomes an interesting way to not dialogue. And so therefore, you wonder why community shows up the way they show up is because they've been labeled as less than. So I lost my thought real quick, but I'm hoping it comes back. But that is a problem, one, that Baltimore City has so many neighborhoods, and there's a set of resources. And because things are set up that way, communities with less get less resources. And therefore, communities get isolated, and problems stay isolated. And then the framework of building on assets is the model that Baltimore City uses. So if we're going to build on assets, and there are communities that have been, I don't like the word disenfranchised, but if there are communities that have not been invested in, but you continue to build on the assets of areas that have been invested in, then the community that I love, for example, disappears, and it is starting to disappear. But the other piece for me that is very important as an organizer, or just thinking about human behavior, is that individuals make up institutions and individuals live in communities. And so we all have stories. And because we may not have that relationship piece, we look at institutions as a problem. So the cultural organizing about stories and creating space for that allows for us to be more collaborative and to build partnerships and to share the challenges that we face in our society.
So here we are, three of many voices that have become a chorus. And I just really quickly want to, in a nutshell, give you some of the things that we have been doing. So there's a working group that breaks down silos in the way that we are working together across boundaries, students, staff, faculty, administrators. We have our ear to the ground because we are in all these different departments and areas within the university and beyond. We know what is going on, and we are seeking out people that we think are part of the work and might not even know it yet. We use storytelling as a way to share those stories, not to talk about projects themselves, but to talk about how people have entered those projects, why it is important to these people to do those projects. We give out grants for courses, to redesign courses, to create projects, and those are available to students, faculty, and staff alike. We are not simply saying yes or no to a grant proposal. We are working with applicants to figure out how can we mold your project so that it is better aligned with our organizing philosophy. We have participated in strategic planning within the university at all levels so that we can influence what is happening, what the university is focusing on. We are also seeing our work not only as action, but as scholarship. We're writing about it. And lastly, it's not only local work, it's also national work. So elevating what we're doing locally to the national stage is so important to create and strengthen the networks that we have and to showcase really and highlight the important work that's going on in our communities.
I'm going to invite Bruce Bergen and Lisa Lee from our National Advisory Board to join me as I close and invite you to probe the two case stories at their sessions and then to bring in the conversation about organizing into the meeting we'll be having with our campus representatives and board Saturday over lunch. And of course, to fill in the space for Sally Safadi, and I also want to give a shout out to Ariston Jacks, who had the visual documentation in the Baltimore case study, and we're hoping at next year's conference to have some Imagining America swag with his art on it. So thank you, Ariston.
Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So we're up here to announce the launch of IA's first national award, which is the Randy Martin Spirit Award. I'm Bruce Bergen. I'm the chair of the Imagining America National Advisory Board.
And my name is Lisa Lee. I'm the vice chair of the National Advisory Board.
So, as many of you know, Randy Martin was a dear friend and colleague of many of us in the room who passed away a year and a half ago. And we wanted to launch this award as a way to remember him and also to, as an individual, and also the many capacities he brought to the work that he did to get with us. I knew Randy in several capacities and worked with him closely, and IA was probably the most important of those. I think I wanted to say one thing about what I admired about Randy, and it kind of cues off of an interesting discussion we had. It was easy to come up with the first, the second, and the fourth word in the title of this award, Randy Martin Award. Right? Spirit was the hard one, because we were thinking, what is it? Like, what's the word that's going to capture what that award is? And we were playing around with genius, mentor. My favorite was clown, right? Clowning. And this is what I admired about Randy, is that, and when I say clowning, I don't just mean that Randy was funny or joked around a lot. He was actually trained as a clown, among many other things. And so, as a clown, he had this amazing ability to read a room and to know exactly the intervention that needed to be made. And sometimes that intervention was a kind of pyrotechnic intellectual fireworks show, which if the video works in a minute, you may see some of. And some of it was pulling someone aside and having a one-on-one mentoring conversation with them. And sometimes it was a pratfall, because he knew how to fall, right? And so I think that when I think about Randy and his work, it's really that capacity, and that capacity to know that all of those abilities, right, the intellectual fireworks show, the mentoring, the pratfall, are really equally important.
Yeah. I just want to say, too, that, I only had the privilege of knowing Randy a short time, but, he was a professor, a socialist, an activist, and a dancer. And he really believed that in theory and practice, all of these identities were not in conflict with one another, but that they nurtured and fostered and actually really, capaciously made each of these identities everything that they could be. And if you look up, Randy Martin on sort of Google, you'll see the picture of him there is him giving a lecture during Occupy in the People's University in Zuccotti Park. And he truly, truly believed that, even though the so-called 1% has all the money and the guns, the 99% has all the vision, the imagination, and the power to actually change the world. And he really embodied the best of what IA really represents. And so we're super excited that we have this wonderful national award that we're going to be giving today. And there's a video, yeah?
Yeah, so we had a number of a really great set of nominees for the award, one of whom was the person who's about to announce the actual award winner, who's Kevin Bott. And we're not gonna say who it is, because that's Kevin's job.
It's very exciting who it is.
So if the video works, then you'll see the video. If it doesn't, you'll just see Kevin Bott. Okay.
When I started training in dance and acting and clowning, there was a kind of, you could say there was a specific kind of framing about what the public meant, right? So there's the private sense of public. These are the folks you perform for. And then there's the public in the sense of a public good. In the over 30 years that I've been engaged in art and politics, that particular partition between public and private has eroded. And so I think that then generates some new kinds of conditions for how you think about questions of engagement, audience, efficacy, evaluation of what you're doing. And in some ways, for me, the social is what is kind of emitted. To me, the social is what is tangible about a we doing something together. And of course, the we in question, the humans who inhabit the world, have never been more of a tangible we. You know, the food that we eat in the morning, the clothes on our back have been touched by hundreds, if not thousands, of strangers, and people will never meet. That idea of the social is not constant. There's not a thing called the social that you just enter. There's very different principles for how we engage one another in order to be together. There is a promise that Imagining America holds to really rethink what higher education could be. Higher education no longer has a claim on the monopoly of legitimate knowledge that it was its founding condition. And therefore the question of how knowledge circulates, where it comes from, who makes it, and therefore I don't think that means that higher education will go away, but that we can't take for granted why it is that people might want to pass through, if they're increasingly going to pass through from many, many different optics with many things that they bear with them, things to teach and things to learn.
Well, I was sharing with the Story Circle participants this morning when they were nervous and getting sort of emotional about what they were about to share with all of you. I said, don't worry about it. Everyone knows I cry at every conference. And so I have a feeling this might be the moment. I'm glad that Lisa, I'm really sorry. I miss Randy a lot. I miss Randy a lot. He was, I'm not going to say a whole bunch about Randy because Lisa and Bruce introduced him. I'll just say that he was my professor. He's one of my first professors as a graduate student in art and public policy at New York University. I think every person who has had any time with Randy will tell you that he was one of the most extraordinary human beings that they had ever met. He was a capacious learner. He was a prodigious writer. Just to look at the titles of his many books will show you the range and depth of his intellectual curiosity. I didn't understand a lot of what he said all the time. He told jokes that I laughed at and I only sort of half got. He was an artist, he was a dancer, he wanted to talk about the connection between art and dance and politics and precarity in our planet. He talked about financialization of our economy. He talked about the administrative rise in our colleges and universities and what it meant for us as human beings. And yet, I can't say all of that doesn't matter because it matters so much to how we'll remember Randy, but when I'm driving on the Belt Parkway to work, sometimes Randy's smile just appears to me like the Cheshire Cat, you know, that you see, that you saw, you know, that smile that's not just in the mouth, but it's so deep in the eyes, it's like right to the soul. And he was that warm in real life all the time with everyone he met. And so this award is about his spirit and the way that he blended administration, scholarship, pedagogy, friendship, humanity, artistry. He was a highly evolved human being that I aspire toward. And so this award is meaningful. And I think the people who receive this award are special for having been recognized as a person who approaches that type of synthesis in themselves and what they're trying to imagine and bring forth in the world. So it is my true honor to say a few words, and I'm just gonna, you know, sitting over there as the conference organizer being stressed, I'm just gonna claim this moment to just say that bus schedules don't matter right now, and 10 minutes off a presentation don't matter right now. It just seems cosmically unjust to give this moment short shrift, speaking about Randy and the person that I'm really delighted and honored to be able to introduce as the inaugural recipient of the Randy Martin Spirit Award. Dr. Ann Basting is an administrator, a scholar, a teacher, and an artist. And yes, I put those in the order of importance, saving the best for last. She's also a wife, a mother, a daughter, and a beloved and respected neighbor and colleague. She's been presenting her work at least since 2009 when I started doing conferences, and she's been sharing the work that has become the cornerstone of her professional and creative life. For almost 2 decades, Anne has been developing, researching, and assessing methods for embedding the arts into long-term care, focusing with particular attention on people with Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and other cognitive disabilities. She's the author and/or the producer of nearly a dozen plays and public performances, notably Finding Penelope from 2011 that she presented about here at Imagining America. It was a play inspired by a year of intergenerational conversations about the myth of Penelope from Homer's Odyssey, and it was professionally staged throughout Luther Manor, a long-term care facility here in Milwaukee. Anne is the author of numerous articles and 3 books: Forget Memory, Creating Better Lives for People with Dementia, The Stages of Age, Performing Age in Contemporary American Culture, and this year she published The Penelope Project, an arts-based odyssey to change elder care. As an administrator, Anne is the director of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Center on Age and Community, through which she fosters partnerships between scholars, students, and service providers, and translates applied research into educational tools, including manuals, films, and social media. Anne teaches playwriting, storytelling. She teaches creative engagement in long-term care, and she's the curricular coordinator of the Center's Summer Institute, which is called Create/Change, Transforming Care for Elders Through Creative Engagement. In 1998, Anne founded when I think of Anne, what I think of, which is the Time Slips Creative Storytelling Project, which offered and still offers through her ongoing leadership an elegant, a simple, and a radical rethinking of elder care by infusing creativity into care relationships and systems. And to me, that work really pushes back against a Western medical idea about dementia and cognitive disability being the absolute worst thing, the death sentence, the end of your life, but pushes against and imagines that there's something meaningful and powerful and loving wherever a human being is in their life. Time Slips offers online certification to people who want to learn how to facilitate playful, imagination-based stories using words, gestures, and sounds. And the program has sent out creative facilitators into 40 states, more than a dozen countries, and this approach is being used in care communities, museums, senior centers, libraries, and in people's homes throughout the world. And my favorite part is the website line that says, Time Slips is evidence-based, award-winning, joyful, and person-centered. And you can be too. Anne has received numerous major grants, a Rockefeller Fellowship, and a Brookdale National Fellowship. And this year, Anne was named a MacArthur Fellow, which, as we all know, means there is at least one genius in the room with us today. And as I said, I am now honored to formally announce that Anne can add to her list of recognitions and accomplishments that she is the inaugural recipient of the Randy Martin Spirit Award. I'm really glad to know Anne. I got to know Anne much better this year as we began planning this conference together. She's warm, she's kind, she's honest, she's a critical thinker. She's humble. You would never know she's a genius when she's just sipping coffee next to you. She embodies this consortium by doing the work of imagining. In a world that forgets its own history and seems to be losing its capacity to imagine hopeful, just futures, Anne's work, I think, is an invitation to resist. It is an invitation to resist narratives of despair. It is an invitation to resist that the idea of our future is dark, constrained, and hopeless. Anne's is a pedagogy and an artistry and a humanity of hope. And right now, I am imagining Randy's soulful smile as I ask you to help me welcome and honor Dr. Ann Basting.
I'm supposed to say something after that? You have to know that when I first started coming to Imagining America, Kathy Woodward said, "I think you should go to this conference. I think you'd like those people." And when I first started coming, I was just overwhelmed by the sensation that I'd found my tribe, and I also had this incredible moment after my first teaching job was at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Go Oshkosh! And I got this fellowship to allow me to set up time slips. And we tried to replicate it, and then we turned it into plays in Milwaukee and New York. And I was living in New York, and I had this hard decision, which was keep the momentum of this project going and really keep this magic and this miracle happening of bringing improvisation into the lives of people with dementia and their families, or go back and teach in academia. And I quit. I quit academia, which was like, whew, did I have to go to therapy for that? I was on a tenure track, the whole thing. And Jan Cohen-Cruz and Randy invited me to NYU to give a talk as, someone adrift in former academic. And so this is super special to me because Randy came in to hear my talk. And as I was telling stories that came out of groups of people with dementia about a singing cowboy and, these absolutely joyful moments, and it means a lot to me to actually have this. And I hope that the work that I do in some way can feed back into inspiring my tribe as it continues on its journey toward really powerful work. So I thank you very much.
Yeah. And so, as you can see, we're handing nothing to Ann right now. There's no... but we are inviting you, Ann, to have a featured extended plenary session next year to share your work in whatever way you would like to share with our network. And I think there'll be a trophy, and I think $625,000 at some point. Okay, thank you, and congratulations.